Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today.
Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis.
One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis series. And for this installment of the Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis series, I am going to be talking about adult film star Linda Lovelace. All images used in this video are under fair use of United States copyright law of 1976 and are used in conjunction with my commentary. Now, Linda Lovelace is infamous for being the star of the 1972 pornographic film Deep Throat, which is known for being the first full feature pornographic film. And before Linda Lovelace became infamous for starring in America's first full featured pornographic film, she was on the road to becoming a woman in crisis ever since the day she was born. Now, Linda Lovelace was born Linda Susan Borman in 1949 to two working class parents. And while her father was away working as a police officer, doing long shifts and overtime, and her mother was a waitress, she had to endure abuse at the hands of her mother, who was a very harsh, unloving, and domineering woman. And I can surmise that Linda Susan Borman was being abused by her mother because her father was not there to meet her emotional needs, and because her father was not there to meet her emotional needs, she then took her anger out on her daughter for her police officer husband not being there, and it was this abuse that started Linda Susan Borman on a road to being in crisis, because since she was in a very hostile environment where she was being abused by a mother who was taking out the anger she had at the father on her for disrupting their lives by being born, what was happening was Linda Susan Borman was in an environment that was very hostile towards her, and I believe being in that hostile environment with a domineering and controlling mother, this led to her being extremely reserved, because she wound up being called Miss Holy in high school because she kept her dates at a distance to avoid sexual activity, because many girls who are in homes with domineering mothers, the mothers try to attack the girls as related to their sexuality because they feel powerless about their own sexuality, and they feel powerless about not getting their needs met in the relationship with their husbands. And because they feel powerless about not getting their needs met by the man in their lives, they project all of their anger at their daughters, and they project that anger at their daughters, trying to make them feel ashamed as related to their sexuality. And in many of these homes, you will have these kinds of mothers verbally abusing their daughters, calling them H's, and telling them that they're harlots. And also, they'll be questioning their sexuality, and in a response, what the daughters will do is go and try to maintain their chastity, to maintain their integrity. Now, when Linda Susan Borman was 16, her family moved to Davie, Florida, after her father retired from the NYPD. And at the age of 20, Linda Borman gave birth to her first child out of wedlock, and her mother tricked her into putting up the child for adoption. And I believe that gave Linda Borman some trauma because, again, a daughter and a child, they have a bond, And this further put Linda Borman on the road to further becoming a woman in crisis, because the mother again wound up hurting her daughter as related to her being able to have a healthy relationship. And seeing the dysfunction in her relationship between her mother and her father, and the emotionally abusive relationship she was having with her own mother, who took her first child away from her, this is what led to Linda Susan Borman returning to New York. And as she returned to New York, she got involved with a man, Chuck Trainer. And as she got involved with Chuck Trainer, she was looking to not have a relationship with him on the right terms, which was having a loving, healthy relationship with a man. No, she wanted to have a relationship with Chuck Trainer to escape the abuse she had suffered from her mother. And with that relationship on those terms, it was a foundation for her further on the road to becoming a woman in crisis. Now, as Linda Borman got involved with Chuck Trainer, he was on the outside very charming and attentive at first, and this is the pattern that many beta males participate in, because what they want to do is try to sell the woman on how they're going to be better than what she's experiencing right now. But once they get involved with that woman, and that woman starts to emotionally commit to that man, that's when Dr. Jekyll becomes Mr. Hyde, and that's when Mr. Hyde starts participating in abusing that woman. And that's the road that Linda Borman wound up on, due to the dysfunctional model that she had for a relationship. And as she was ironically looking to escape that model of abuse, she ran into a predator, Chuck Trainer, who basically was the white male equivalent of a Pookie or a Ray Ray. And this Pookie and Ray Ray, what he wanted to do was, he did not want a wife to help him build anything. No, he was looking to be Susan Borman's pimp, and he was looking to go out here and exploit his so-called wife. And when he looked to exploit his so-called wife, he was out here looking to sell her in the pornography industry. Now, before the porn industry was making movies, they were making these short films known as loops, and these loops would be shown in places like Times Square. And to get Linda Borman to perform in these films, she alleges that her husband, Chuck Trainer, used to beat her and threaten her, and also threatened to put a gun to her head to make her perform. And this is how she got her start doing pornographic films, doing these what they called hardcore loops, which were made for the peep shows that were featured in places like Times Square. Now, it takes a certain type of sick man to go out here and exploit his wife like this, and it's a certain type of sick man, because no man who loves his woman wants his woman out here having other men perform sex acts on his wife. No man wants that, because he knows that when he has sex with his wife, the two of them become one, and they know that that man releases his spirit inside of that man, of that woman, and they want to bond with that woman. But when it comes down to beta males, they don't want to bond with a woman. No, because most of their sexuality is messed up. They look to have sex in a secret world where they feel safe about participating in their masculinity, and in that place, they believe sexual deviancy is normal, and that's where Chuck Trainer is a man in crisis and a deeply sick and depraved individual, because he felt like the only place he could be masculine is the world of pornography, and I believe he got pleasure by abusing his wife, by sending her out here to participate in what I call deviant sexual acts with this pornography, where she was out here letting his wife be used by these men sexually to make these pornographic films. Now, as she was out here doing the hardcore loops, then Chuck Trainer allegedly had Susan Borman go out and participate in a bestiality film. And again, this shows how absolutely sick Chuck Trainer is, because no man who loves his wife wants his wife out here participating in a sex act where they're out here having just relations with these creatures like this. I mean, this is a sick man to sit there and watch his wife do these kinds of things. And it's a sick man who believes that this is something that to do to his wife. No, a man who loves his wife wants to go out here and care for his wife, and he wants to build something with that woman. But this man got pleasure about seeing his wife broken down, and it just showed how sick he was. But the whole thing is just absolutely sick. And as time went on, she went on from participating in this act. Now, some people say that he coerced her into doing this. Others say that she was a willing participant. But I believe that Susan Borman was broken down to the point by this man's abuse that she would do these acts just to please him, because she didn't want further abuse. Now, after participating in that deviant movie, she went on to participate in what they called a golden shower movie. And again, it's just absolutely sick, the things that this man had her participating in. And again, showing that Linda Borman was a woman in crisis, because she was basically being sexually abused and sexually exploited by this sick predator. And this predator, he was out here using his wife to make money for the entertainment in the adult film industry. And after having her participate in these two deviant movies, she then starred in the 1972 film Deep Throat. And as she participated in this film, where she was known for participating in the act of deep throating, again, this was her most infamous film, and it was the film that basically mainstreamed adult entertainment as normal in America, because as curious people wanted to know what this whole sex act was about, that many went out here looking for this film. And as they went out here looking for this film, they were curious and went out here looking to find out what this film was about. And this was the film that basically started the mainstreaming of pornography as normal in America. Because before the film Deep Throat, most pornographic films were shown only in pornographic theaters, and usually they were just little loops, and where they would just do a quick film, or they would be short films. But this was the first one that was a full feature film, and it being the first big feature film, it basically started the road for pornography becoming a major industry. And Deep Throat went on to gross over $600 million, and the foundations of Deep Throat show just how many of the performers are exploited, because Susan Borman, as she became Linda Lovelace, was only paid $1,250 for that film, and that money was taken from her by her husband, Chuck Trainer. And this is something that goes on with many women in the adult film industry. Many people don't know that many adult performers like Linda Lovelace were paid next to nothing and are still paid next to nothing. And many performers only get maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a scene. They don't own any of the production rights, because in the adult film industry, it's usually a cash business or a cashier's check business, and performers they just get a check cut for them when they get cash in their hand, but they don't own any of the intellectual property rights to any of their films like actors and actresses in the film industry. And after starring in this film that made her infamous, Susan Borman, aka Linda Lovelace, got next to no money for that film and basically wound up living and struggling for many years. Now, yes, she got a media sensation and wound up getting some attention, but she was never able to turn that into a mainstream career, and that also started a paradigm for many entertainers like those girls who pose in Playboy, because many of the girls who pose in Playboy, they go out here and pose nude thinking that they can create a covert contract with Hollywood, but Hollywood wants nothing to do with adult performers because they cannot sell those performers to the housewives of America who get jealous of these women. And because they get jealous of these women, they don't want anything to do with them. That is something many young girls don't know about the adult film industry, that if you try to use it as a gateway to Hollywood, it won't work because many of the women out here who are housewives and girlfriends and wives, they're not going to want to watch you because you're the girl who they think is going to take their boyfriend away, or others will just see that same woman as a tramp, and they're not going to support that woman in any project that she does. Now, Susan Borman, aka Linda Lovelace, made her theater debut in a play called Pajama Tops, and it just didn't get over, and her performance got panned. And she also tried to do a sequel to Deep Throat, an R-rated version, but it didn't get the critical praise that the original film got, and it didn't get any of the popularity that it got. And finally, in 1975, she left Pookie, Chuck Trainer, and decided to get with another man, David Winters, the producer of her 1976 film, Linda Lovelace for President, which starred one of the Monkees, the late Mickey Dolenz. And while she tried to go out here and do a promotion campaign in a penis-shaped vehicle, it just never really got over. And she did pose in Playboy, Bachelor, and Esquire, but again, none of this really got her very popular, and it just never really got her over right after this. Now, in a desperate attempt to continue to keep the attention going, she was out here looking to do some pro-porn biographies, but these are the kind of what I call ghost-written books that are quickly thrown out here to try to make a fast dollar. But Linda Lovelace was dealing with other issues in addition to her marriage, because she had health issues, because even before she entered the porn industry, she was in a car accident, and she got a transfusion of blood where she got bad blood that gave her hepatitis, and that combined with her smoking of marijuana and painkillers also led to her having issues as related to her health. And these issues, along with her second marriage and the birth of her 2 children, led to her leaving the adult film industry. And she left the adult film industry and tried to have a regular life, and had a regular life for some time with another man who she married named Larry Marciano, a cable guy. And as she had that life with that cable guy, they had 2 children and lived out in Long Island, where she got a liver transplant for the injury she had in the automobile accident. And the marriage went on for some time until Marciano's business went out of business in 1990, and she moved to Colorado. And after the marriage, she wound up trying to paint a picture of her second husband, saying that he drank to excess, verbally abused her children, and was violent towards her. And it fits right in the pattern, because it seems like this woman was continuing to be a woman in crisis, because she just did not know how to pick a partner, because her model for a partner, her emotionally unavailable father, and her just angry mother led to her not knowing how to pick a man, and she had nobody there to vet these men. And this is something I talk about in The Woman Crisis as related to how feminist indoctrinated women do not really know how to pick a partner and usually pick partners from the bottom of the barrel looking for love out of obligation. And again, when you start a relationship out of obligation, what happens is you're not going to have a partner who wants to be there. You're going to have a partner who believes that they have to be there. And when they feel like they have to be there, what happens is that person starts to resent their partner. And that's what happens in the case of what it looks like both of Linda Lovelace's partners. They were looking to use her as what said. But what I believe is that with the second marriage, she just was partially angry because this man just didn't meet her expectations and things weren't going the way she wanted, because when a man's business doesn't do well, he's not able to care for the family, and that's when a lot of women start to lose respect for that man. And I believe that she was angry at that man as related to things not working out, as related to his business. Now, as the marriage started to deteriorate, Linda Borman went out and was out here joining the anti-pornography movement, and this is after writing the pro-pornography books. She then became a part of the anti-pornography movement. And I believe this was a desperate attempt to try to get attention, and she was trying to get attention from people because she no longer had a career. But I also understand why she would be anti-pornography, because she was abused and coerced by a just sick and depraved husband, because this sick and depraved husband basically exploited her for money. And again, he was a bottom of the barrel scavenger, because again, only a sick, depraved man is going to want other men just being naked in front of their wife and putting their rod inside of her. I mean, only a sick and depraved man is going to sit there and watch as his wife is having sex with other people. And again, a very sick man, but she was getting involved with sick people because she was a part of a family that was in crisis, a family foundation where she was not getting her emotional needs met. She was not getting the love that she needed. She was not getting the care that she needed. And she was not being given the love and attention she was given. And again, what I find to be interesting is that even though she says she was anti-pornography, she then, in 2001, did a lingerie pictorial for the magazine Leg Show. So I'm seeing where she's got a lot of diametrically opposed views, and that's typical of women in crisis. A lot of women in crisis are not very consistent because they have not worked out the abuse in their lives. They've not worked out the trauma in their lives, and they haven't gone out here and dealt with their mental health issues. And Linda Lovelace definitely had them as related to her family, as related to the man she got involved with, and many of the battles that she had to deal with as related to things like obscenity laws, because a lot of time with Deep Throat, it came out in the 70s, and people thought that the film she was obscene, and because the film was popular, they were thinking the film was extremely obscene because it really challenged the community standards at the time. And again, that's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure for someone to deal with in their life, and that's possibly why she took to smoking pot and to try to deal with all of this stress. And Linda Lovelace, even though she was infamous for starring in pornographic films that are supposed to give a certain group of men pleasure, she was living with a lot of pain, and she was living with a lot of pain because she was a woman in crisis, and in her whole life she didn't really know how to have peace and stability, even though her second husband did try to give her some peace and stability. He couldn't really give it to her because on the inside she did not have that peace, because she didn't have a foundation in a family where she was nurtured, loved, or cared for by a mother, and because her mother didn't give her any love or care. This is what led to her becoming a woman in crisis, and this woman in crisis sadly wound up passing away after a car accident in 2002, and she was in this car accident where she had massive trauma and internal injuries, and she was taken off life support in a Denver, Colorado hospital, thankfully with her family at her side. And thankfully, she did manage to leave this world in peace at 53 years old with her family at her side after she was taken off life support. So Linda Susan Borman, aka Linda Lovelace, is a woman in crisis, like I talk about in The Woman Crisis. And while she was out here, she dealt with a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And while she was a part of the adult film industry, the adults in her life didn't really care for her. And that's what led to her becoming a part of the adult film industry. And a lot of people wanted to attack her. But as I see it, she's a woman in crisis, and she has many of the issues I talk about as related to today's modern women in crisis who don't know how to be women because the first woman in their life never gave them any love, never met their emotional needs, never taught them female life skills, and this is what led to Linda Susan Borman being exploited by a predator and a deviant, her first husband. And again, all because she never got that foundation in family from the first woman in her life who put her on the road to becoming a woman in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to a woman becoming a woman in crisis, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to see me make more videos about Hollywood historical women in crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback and e-readers everywhere at online booksellers today.